I look at empathy as the trait that will save the world.
Today's topic is how to find your power through empathy with Dr. Judith Orloff.
Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of the Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Are you feeling burned out or finding it hard to focus on your goals? Or are you in transition? Well, you're not alone. We all need to activate our superpowers. These are the internal strengths and abilities we all already have but don't use all the time. Superpowers can be cultivated, and they include empathy, love, intuition, courage, and more. As always, this episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women living our best lives. Whether it's your health, relationships, your money, or making an impact in your community and the world, Well Woman Life has you covered. You've made a commitment to not settle, to use your voice, and to live your best life. Well Woman Life offers annual memberships, workshops, and retreats to support you. Check out wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our growing community. Now back to the show. This week's episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women who support each other without judgment to live our best lives. Before we begin, I want to let you know we had some audio issues during this interview, so you may hear a couple of crackling sounds, but it's very minor and shouldn't impact your ability to listen to the interview. And it's a great interview, so definitely stay tuned. Today's topic is how to find your power through empathy, and hopefully by the end of the show, you'll be inspired to tap into your empathy, find your intuitive guidance, and set boundaries to protect yourself. For those of you who attended the retreat or have attended any of my workshops, either in person or online, and you've learned about the Well Woman Life framework for living a well woman life, you know that a big part of it is intuition. And so this is a super important interview that talks a lot about intuition and a lot about tapping into that intuitive guidance. My guest today is Judith Orloff, MD, who is author of The Empath's Survival Guide, Life Strategies for Sensitive People. Dr. Orloff is a psychiatrist, an empath, and intuitive healer, and is on the UCLA Psychiatric Clinical Faculty. And I just found out she's actually going to be a speaker at a fabulous conference I went to in May earlier this year at the Chopra Center Women's Retreat. And I just saw she's going to be a speaker there. So we are in for a treat here. In this episode, Dr. Orloff and I talk about how we can say no as a complete sentence, how her intuition guided her to write 6 books, and 3 things you can do right away to tune into your empathy and your power. The free giveaway today is the Empath Self-Assessment, and you can get it at wellwomanlife.com/093show. I really like this giveaway because it helps you figure out quickly what type of empath you are. Before we begin, I want to let you know about the Well Woman Life holiday party on December 13th. We have people flying into town for this, and you should too. It's free for members, and tickets are available at wellwomanlife.com/events. You can also join the conversation in the Well Woman Life community group at wellwomanlife.com/Facebook. We'd love to see you there and hear about your experience with empathy. Now to my interview with Dr. Judith Orloff. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you. You, as we heard in the introduction, are a Western trained doctor, but you also have gone on to do lots of other things. Before we talk about sort of what you're up to and all of these things and your book and everything. I'd really love to get a sense of who you are in the world. And I always start off my interviews this way because I think that we are so much more than our titles. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about who are you in the world today?
Well, I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a traditionally trained MD. I did my education at USC Medical School and UCLA for my psychiatric residency. And I have a private practice now in Los Angeles, and I'm a psychiatrist. I'm also an empath. And that's what I wrote the Empath Survival Guide about, how to incorporate intuition, empathy, and, your sensitivities into the healing process. And so, I work as a psychiatrist, and I have a lot of empath patients who come to me and highly sensitive people who come to me who are overwhelmed in the world, and they are porous and they're open and they tend to absorb energy like other people don't. And so empaths are very open, they're loving, they're compassionate, they're wonderful people, but they tend to take on the stress of others. And so the focus of my work is really how to help sensitive people thrive and allow themselves to feel everything and develop their intuition, develop their spirituality, and also learn how not to absorb the stress of others. And so that's the focus of my work, my new book, and I've been on book tour for a couple months.
Okay. I want to talk to you, follow up on a couple of things that you said. So do you use the word sensitive and the word empath interchangeably, or how do you distinguish that?
Yeah, I don't really use the word sensitive too much. It's kind of an older word. So I use the word empath, but a sensitive can be a wider range, I think, in the old terminology of, psychic. It can include a lot of psychic things. And my definition of empath is that there are many types of empaths, and some of them include being an animal empath, people who could commune with animals deeply, being a dream empath, people who get guidance in their dreams, being an earth empath, being able to have a real deep connection with the earth and the earth's changes.
Do you think, Dr. Orloff, that everyone has the potential to be an empath? It's just they haven't found it yet?
They have the potential for empathy, but empath is a little bit different. And empath is on the high end of the empathic spectrum, meaning they not only have empathy and feel what's going on in other people, they actually absorb it into their own bodies, which for positive energy, that's beautiful. But for, all the difficult energies that are going on in our world, it can be really problematic. And so you have to learn tools how not to do that.
Okay. And do you find there's a gender difference with empaths? Like, are there more women who are empaths than men, or how do you view that?
Well, it's interesting. I have an empath support group on Facebook, and I have about 9,500 people in it. And I would say 85% are women and 15% are men. But I don't necessarily think there are more women than men. I think men are just having a hard time speaking up about it, because sensitive boys really get demolished in our culture, where anything, sensitive or not wanting to join a sports team, which is typical of empathic boys, wanting to have more alone time, be in the forest, be in nature, think, contemplate, muse, it's different. They don't like video games. They don't like, some of the same things that, other boys like, they don't. So they're often ostracized. So therefore, as men, they grow up, they're less likely to be less free to express their sensitivity. So, I've written a blog on celebrating the sensitive man, which is, also part of the book. I mean, I'm encouraging men to come out and be sensitive and strong. And this, is only a plus in my eyes. It's not to get over feminized, but it's to, to balance the masculine and sensitivities more, to be whole.
And do you think empath men are more in tune with their feminine side?
Yeah, definitely.
That's part of
it. Because they could flow more. They're not just, typically masculine, which is fix it, more linear, more, aggressive, move forward with your plan as opposed to intuiting your plan, feeling into your plan. I think because empaths sense energy, the chi, the shakti that surrounds the body, they can sense a lot of what's going on between interactions. And that's very different than just seeing surfaces.
Mm. And so what's the big picture with your work? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with working with people on this?
I'm trying to help everybody embrace their power. And their power includes their sensitivities, and to integrate the linear mind with their spirituality, with their energy, with their intuition, to be whole, shiny people rather than just disembodied heads who are just thinking and problem solving and so frustrated in the prison of the mind because they don't know how to extend the wisdom of the body and the wisdom of intuition and ultimately empathy. I mean, I look at empathy as the trait that will save the world. I think that's something that we all aspire towards. I just read a quote by one of my heroes, the physicist Stephen Hawking, who said empathy is the one trait he wants to expand and amplify in himself. That's the most important trait. And the Dalai Lama says empathy is the most precious of human qualities. And so it's something to really appreciate in yourself and develop.
Okay.
And so anyone who wants to become more empathic and learn how not to take on other people's stuff, you can feel for them, but not take it on. That's what the book is about.
Okay. And you call it a survival guide. So can you give us some of the, can you give us a few tips to get started? Like how we should be thinking about this and what are some of the first things that we could try?
Yes. Well, one of the chapters in the book is how to combat energy vampires, including narcissists. So in terms of doing that and protecting your energy, you have to learn how to set really clear boundaries and to be able to say, no is a complete sentence, that you're able to say no in a very kind but firm tone. Or if somebody calls you talking about their life story and going around in circles about why their mother doesn't understand them and their boyfriend walked out on them and their boss, doesn't elevate them enough, they go around in circles for you to say, to have the 3-minute phone call, which is what I recommend in the book, and say, I love you so much, you're my friend, but I can only listen if you want to get into solutions after they've expressed themselves. And so you don't allow a 2-hour phone call to happen. You set the no boundary, and that protects your energy so that you're not drained. Because a lot of times people who are empathic, they tend to overgive. And they give too much of their energy to others. And so learning how to set a boundary on that and realizing that to be a compassionate person, you don't have to take on other people's stuff or listen to them endlessly, because empaths need to practice self-care. Empaths love their baths, and people who are non-empaths might love water. To get into a bathtub and just allow the cleansing aspect of water to purify you and relax you. To get out in nature, that's very important in terms of replenishing your energy, to try and create a positive circle of friends who have, you can really uplift each other, and to set limits and identify who are the energy vampires and do I really need them in my life? And if so, learn strategies, to minimize the problems that they cause in your system. And also just to protect your health. Because if you're sensitive, you want to have positive energy coming in a lot, and you don't want to use your energy frivolously. You really need to have very compassionate energy management so that you can have your alone time, so that you can, have time to think and meditate, rather than just pushing and doing and trying to figure things out all the time.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on this, the tip you have about saying no, or setting the boundary around the 3-minute conversation. I feel like maybe listeners might be wondering how, I think when you're in one of those conversations, it's hard to set that boundary if you think that the person is going to suffer because they can't talk it out some more with you. And so that's part of the setting the boundary, right?
Well, if a friend is going through a crisis or something, of course you want to listen. But where you start setting the boundary is that they keep repeating themselves over and over. They call the next night with exactly the same thing.
Right.
And exactly the same thing. So it's about listening and being compassionate. But some people are in victim mode. And so they like to repeat over and over again why they're in victim mode. And so that's where you set the boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of times when we set boundaries, it's very positive and it really works. And other times you sometimes lose friends, right? Because
if you're the friend supply and they just want to dump all their stuff on you,
right?
Time, and that's how they define friendship. Yeah, but friendship is reciprocal, where you listen to each other and you're sensitive to your energetic needs. Mm-hmm. You don't want to just have dumpers. I have a section in the book on venting versus dumping. And dumping is where you just spew all your stuff onto another person. And venting is making a request to talk to somebody and not just taking them by surprise, saying, do you have time to talk about this now, or can we plan a time? And then sticking to one topic. Let's say you have one issue you want to deal with. Just talk about one topic and try and find a resolution to it and talk about it in compassionate language. So venting is a bit different than just somebody dumping. So knowing the difference for empaths or non-empaths is really key.
Yeah. So this idea that empaths need to really conserve their energy and build up their resilience, do you have any more tips? I know you talked about some of the self-care aspects, like taking, time to go for a walk or have that downtime. What else would you suggest if, for example, someone is, very busy and around people a lot and can't really get away to be by themselves?
Well, I got to say, there's always the bathroom. I use the bathroom constantly everywhere I go to do the 3-minute heart meditation that I suggest in the book, where you sit, you center yourself, you breathe, and you focus on your heart or something really beautiful, some image, the ocean, the desert, the moon, whatever you resonate with, and put your hand over your heart center, which is in the middle of your chest, and take 3 minutes to breathe and focus on the loving kindness in you, and that centers you. And so let's say you're at a business meeting and you have a little break maybe, and you're feeling really frazzled. Go into the bathroom, do this heart meditation, and come back out. As this is the one practice I use as an empath throughout the day, every day, to be able to center myself between patients so I can be clear and in my power. So even though it's meditation, it's only 3 minutes, and it works wonders to bring yourself back to your center again, which is so essential if you're, have a busy life and you have many things going on. And I have patients who are running corporations and they meditate in their car before they go in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be creative about where you meditate, but meditation is key for empath. And also there's a technique of shielding where you can, if you're around toxic people, or let's say a meeting is going bad and doesn't feel very good, you can picture a shield around your body of white light. And it's all around every single bit of you, and it stops any kind of toxic energy from coming in. It's a powerful visualization. And it allows anything positive in, but it's semi-permeable, so it keeps the negative out or the difficult out. So that's a technique many therapists use to shield themselves. Let's say if they're, around a toxic patient in an emergency room, or nurses, use it a lot because they're on the front lines, really working with everybody.
Now, what about for people who are extroverts and, generally don't take a lot of downtime or alone time, or feel they don't need it, and don't relate to this idea of being, an empath? can they, I mean, obviously anybody can benefit from some of these tips that you're giving, but how do you reach those people and maybe those who might need this the most? Right.
Yeah, well, they're extroverted empaths. They're introverted empaths and extroverted empaths. And extroverted empaths love to be in social situations. They thrive in, in business situations or team meetings, whereas introverted empaths might not. But the extrovert needs to learn how to set a boundary. No is a complete sentence. The extrovert needs to learn how to come into his or her body and center themselves so they're not just in their mind. The mind can be a prison, and it's very painful for people if they want to make big decisions to stay in their mind. So extroverted or not, they're going to have to learn how to center themselves and listen to their inner guidance, their intuition, which doesn't come from the mind. It comes from other sources. So the extrovert needs to learn how to shift levels of awareness from the linear mental to the more empathic, intuitive. And it can only serve them because they get different forms of information coming in that way.
Okay. Dr. Orloff, I want to move to the segment called Superpowers for Success. And this is where we talk more personally about you and how you have been able to do what you've done in terms of, your training and now building your business and publishing your book. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Being a well woman includes being financially healthy. Our sponsors, Lorraine L. and Kate Stalter of Better Money Decisions, are on a mission to eliminate complexity and confusion from your financial life. They replace Wall Street jargon with straightforward talk you can understand, and they create investment and retirement plans customized for your needs and your future. Download a free copy of their latest book, Don't Let Your Money Kick the Bucket Before You Do, and learn how to avoid the biggest mistakes women make when planning for retirement. Go to bettermoneydecisions.com/wellwoman and download your free book today. The first question I have for you is, what does success in life mean for you?
Living my passion and being guided by the messages that I want to communicate to the world and not doing anything that feels off to me, to my intuition. As to me, there always has to be energy there. Each book I've written, and this is my 6th book, The Empath Survival Guide, I've listened to the message that needs to come through because it takes a long time to write a book. And so you're really living with it day in and day out. And it's always been a personal exploration for me. Whatever topic I take on, if it's, and it's share my expertise on it. If it was on, my first book was Second Sight, which was about how I came out as a psychiatrist and intuitive to incorporate intuition and conventional medicine together and the fears I had about that. And so that was my coming out book. So the secret is be in your passion, listen to your intuitive guidance. Just don't do something just because it sounds like a good idea, but it doesn't really resonate in your soul.
And when you say listen to your intuitive guidance, is this something you do on a daily basis or multiple times a day? Or how do you stay in tune with that guidance?
It's through getting quiet. The visions come when you can get quiet. And when I have open-ended time, they more freely come then. Or if I am in meditation and can silent the chatter, the monkey mind chatter is underneath that. Mm-hmm. But if you're continually busy and pushing and thinking, it's harder to access them. Yeah.
And when did you know you were really good at what you do?
Well, I always loved working with patients. So I think from the very beginning, I wasn't good in medical school in the test taking part. That was a real challenge for me, learning basic science, because I was more of an artist and creative person. So I really had to stretch to do that. But the minute I started working with people and I was able to listen to their stories and be empathic with them, and I saw the responses that I got from people, that I think from that point on. And over the years, I've honed my intuition because it's been my passion. And so I listen to my patients with my intuition as well as my mind and my empathy. And so I've seen the good that it can do. And I've seen how the intuitive guidance can help people, let's say, over that hump where they don't know a direction. Let's say they're at a precipice and they don't know what direction to go in to help them. And I've seen, all the years of me doing this and all the letters and emails and thank yous and changes that I've seen in people coming to workshops. So it's, I'm one of those lucky people who gets heaped with letters and emails of appreciation. So it's very, very gratifying.
Okay. And what superpower did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time? I can kind of maybe guess what you're going to say, but I thought maybe I'd ask anyway.
Yeah, it's empathy and intuition.
Yeah.
I think when I was younger, I was less empathic as I was more self-centered and more, interested in what I was doing. But I've developed intuition and empathy as a devotional art. It's something that is the core of my life path. It's something I'm devoted to as a form of getting in touch with myself and also with spirit. And so it's a very deep practice for me. And so I apply it to my work and my life to the best of my ability. And it grows every day and it changes every day, and it will continue until when I pass over. It's a lifelong process of devotion to the inner voice and to empathy.
And what do you do when you have a setback? How do you come back after like kind of getting knocked down?
Well, I express my emotions. I cry. I talk to a friend. I rest a lot. I sleep. I regroup. I let myself feel the emotions, whatever disappointment or failure or whatever. But, my larger scheme of life, though, is everything is a spiritual lesson. So even though it's painful and horrible, to the linear mind, it does always serve a purpose. So I don't really deal with life from a victim stance.
And what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
Trust your intuition. Don't talk yourself out of it. If it says don't get involved with that person, even though you're so attracted to them, don't go there. Really trust your intuition, or at least go slow. It'll save you a lot of time, in lessons. But I know people are human, and they have to do what they have to do. And I know people don't listen to their intuition when they feel passion or when they have a strong desire or they get a big paycheck, even if their intuition says, maybe wait for something else. It's tempting. So sometimes you just have to live through life and see what it's like not to listen to your intuition and see that only, negative things come from that. So, it might be a matter of maturing, but if, at 25, if I could trust my intuition, the amount I do now, it would have been really helpful.
Yeah. And Dr. Orloff, on the Well Woman Show, I often talk about working towards social, political, and economic justice for women, which is a definition of feminism. Do you consider that your work is working towards that? And do you consider yourself to be a feminist?
Definitely. Everything is working towards that. The individual work, the empathy that one develops for your family, your friends, and for yourself, that can be taken out into the world. If a revolutionary has not healed and has not worked on these issues, they're not going to have the power to change the world. You have to start with yourself and open up and then put these values to the test in the world scene. Yes, I know they work, and you have to stay true to them. And so for us to have empathy with our so-called enemies or whatever, someone who has a different belief system, that's the beginning of the dialogue. And so it's so important, if we ever have a chance at some lasting peace, to be able to find it within first and then expand it out in the world. If you don't model it, you're not going to be a very powerful role model for the world.
Yeah, and that's a problem when we have leaders who are not modeling that at all.
huge problems. We have leaders who are working out their childhood issues in the world scale. They're working out daddy and mommy issues, and it's scary.
Yeah. Okay, last question for you on a lighter note, perhaps. What are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
I am reading The Tantric Jesus, and it's about, early Christianity and its relationship to tantric spiritual practice.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, we'll link to that in the show notes. We'll also link to your website and your book. And I so appreciate you being on the show. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join us. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women, leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @WellWomanLife. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.